Hey guys, welcome back to the Thread of Thoughts podcast. I am your host, Tia. It feels so good to be back right here in front of the microphone. Honestly, I took the entire month of April? Yeah, April off. And I'm just so happy to be back here and talking to you guys. And today I actually thought, with me coming back to the podcast, that it would be a good time to talk about what having a podcast is really like. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. And it's so crazy because it feels like I'm breaking the fourth wall by talking about this. And, just because I'm on a podcast telling you guys what it's like to have a podcast. And I hope that I'm using that term correctly because I just learned what that is like a week ago. I even went to school for performance theater for a very, very short period of time, but I never knew what breaking the fourth wall was. And I think that's insane. But is it though, honestly? Because I don't even think that I was even taught that. I took some theater classes in high school and then I went to college a little bit for performance theater, but I really don't recall me ever learning that. I just really, really don't. I didn't even think it was a term for it. And I just find it so crazy because my little sister is actually the person who told me what it was a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. It's so crazy. Anyways, let me give you guys a definition of what breaking the fourth wall is because I can provide examples, but when it comes to explaining exactly what things are, I'm not the best with that. So let me give you guys an example. Let me actually do my research here, okay? What is breaking the fourth wall? Okay, so I actually have a really good definition pulled up here from techtarget.com. And it says that breaking the fourth wall means doing or saying something that either explicitly or implicitly acknowledges the artificiality of the environment and the fact that both the presenters and the audience are aware of that artificiality. So the best example that I can provide is just on a sitcom when they look at the camera or they look at the audience, something like that. So when I learned that, I was just mind blown because I never knew it was a term for that. I never knew it was a term for that. And so in a sense, it kind of feels like even though being on the podcast, I talk and engage with you guys, it's like I'm actually telling you guys what this process is like. You know? Kind of like when you watch a YouTube video and you're trying to learn how to monetize off of YouTube. And then it's like you have the YouTubers telling you how to do that on YouTube. Okay. All right. I'm done. If that makes sense at all, but I'm done. I'm done. Let's just get into the podcast episode. Okay. I just think, I don't know. I'm just still amazed that it was a term for it. So anyways, that's what I'll be discussing today. What having a podcast is really like. And I want to preface this by saying that I am no expert at podcasting. Okay. Not at all. I am still learning to this day. I haven't even been doing this for a year yet. I haven't. And then if you count the times where I might have skipped some episodes or anything like that, I haven't even been doing this as consistently as I'd like to. It's something that I'm still working on. And there's never a time where I can't learn something. I just want to make that clear. I don't even know if I'll have any advice for you guys today. I just want to share my experience. I'm all about telling you guys what my experiences are like. So I just thought today would be the perfect time to do so. And hopefully, you guys can hear me out and just find something to take away or learn from because like I said, I'm no expert. I really want to make that clear, okay? I'm still learning every time I hop on this microphone, okay? So, just want to make that clear. Now, I thought the best way to start off this podcast episode would be to talk to you guys about why I decided to start a podcast. Now, I launched my podcast in August of 2022. So, as I mentioned before, not a full year just yet. But I started my podcast because personally, I've always had a passion for speaking. And do I still get extremely nervous to do it? Hell yeah. Even though I do this podcast on my own and I sit here by myself and I record by myself, I still get nervous to do it. But I have always felt that my voice is purposeful. Or maybe I just like hearing myself talk. I don't know. I don't know. But as I've mentioned before, I've studied theater for a very short amount of time. And I truly just always wanted to be an actress since I was about 12. Honestly. And honestly, it all started with me looking out the window in the car on those rainy days, acting like I was in a sad music video. I feel like every kid has done that. And if you say that you did not do that, I'm not going to believe you. Like, it just gives main character. It gives main character. And I know we have all had that moment as a child. I just know it. But anyways, like I said, I've always dreamt of just being on TV, being an actress, being a TV show host. I've dreamt of being on the radio. I've just always wanted to use my voice in some sort of capacity, some sort of broadcasting capacity. And it's so nerve-wracking because I love to talk, but I just get extremely flustered speaking as well. And whether it's a new interaction or presentation, whatever, I still get anxious. I've attempted being a YouTuber, all those things. And I can say that one of the best things of podcasting is that it takes the pressure off from being on camera. And like I said, I want to use my voice in a certain capacity. You know what I mean? I know people prefer video podcasting, and I might get there. I might, but for right now, it's a no for me. And I do understand that video podcasting, it just creates that trust, with your audience, and people want to pick up on those nonverbal cues. They want to see your gestures, your facial expressions. They want to see those things. But I also know that it's a lot that goes into video podcasting: space, setup, equipment. And you just have to do whatever works for you. So I began podcasting because I just felt it was the best way to discuss whatever I'm passionate about or whatever I'm interested in or experiencing on my own time, right? At my own speed and comfortably. I can honestly say there's nothing better than being in bed and just hitting record. Being at the dinner table and just hitting record. Being in the car and just hitting record, Not every moment is a camera moment. Podcasting to me is a great start to speak with people on a personal level while also developing a personal brand. And I can say from my experience, the more I podcast, the more I learn about others as well as myself, because I come to so many different realizations before recording, during my recordings, after my recordings. And I like to look at this as an outlet. I like to look at this as a personal diary, honestly. I have the opportunity to listen back to my previous recordings and compare those previous thoughts and opinions and emotions to my current thoughts and opinions and emotions, on a specific topic. And to me, it's just growth over time. Another reason I started a podcast is because I took the time to think about what I feel like when I'm actually listening to a podcast, right? Sometimes I want to feel like I have a friend in the room. Podcasts can help me be more productive. Oh my gosh, no, wait. This is actually something else. It's a term for this. Apparently, oh my God, like I literally just learned this a couple weeks ago. Again, this is known as body doubling. And let me get my definition ready because you guys know me and the definitions. Yeah. So I have this definition here from healthline.com. It says that body doubling is a productivity strategy in which another person works alongside you as you complete a task you might otherwise find challenging. Having someone nearby may help you stay focused, engaged, or motivated to finish the job. Yeah, so I noticed that I do this as well, and I find it very helpful. So, for example, a few weekends ago, I decided to spend the Saturday by myself and with myself. And recently, to be quite honest, it has been a bit more difficult completing tasks in public alone, I can say, for many reasons, but I won't go in depth about that now. It took me, it took a lot for me to complete these tasks that day specifically, but I realized that I had about like 400 voice audios from my friend. No, I'm kidding. Not like 400 audios, but it was a lot. And that's our thing because we are 7 hours apart. We send each other voice audios back and forth. It's just something that we do. And I knew that I wanted to take myself out to lunch, right? So I sat at this restaurant, I was eating alone, and I noticed that when I started to feel that I was alone and I was by myself in this restaurant, I just got so anxious. And I thought to myself, I should catch up on my friend's audios, right? And so the minute that I turned on my friend's audios, I no longer felt alone. It was extremely helpful. And though she's in another country, when I turned on those audios, it felt like she was right beside me. And I was able to continue my lunch without feeling so anxious. It helped soothe my nerves. And I just noticed that initially I was so flustered and I was rushing to eat. And once I began to feel those emotions, I immediately began to regret even taking myself out in the first place. My heart was racing. It was just really bad. It was really bad. But with her being there virtually, you know, I was a lot more calm. I was a lot more patient and I took my time. And that is exactly how I feel when podcasts are on. Productive, but at ease, if that makes sense. I typically do prefer other solo podcasts as well that fall under the genre of, let's say, like personal journals, woman in their 20s, or something of the sort, right? And I don't know, because speaking of that, I should really venture out and try a different category of podcasts to listen to, but it'll definitely be baby steps. And the same goes for books, right? I have so many personal growth and self-help and self-improvement books, and I need to mix it up a little bit. I need to read some graphic novels and some mysteries and thrillers. You know, I keep reading these self-help and personal growth books as if I'm just something that constantly needs to be worked on, and that's not the case. Okay, I'm going down another rabbit hole. Okay, anyways, back to podcasting. Like I said, it's just going to take time for me to venture out to that. But of course, there are other reasons I listen to podcasts, entertainment, motivation, inspiration, and the reasons may vary for you too. All in all, within just a few months of being a podcaster, I've learned a lot about myself and the process. So I do actually have a list of things that I want to touch on regarding my experiences with podcasting. And the first thing is topics, okay? Because when podcasting was just a thought to me, I constantly thought about what exactly is the podcast going to be about? What is that one topic that I can discuss forever? I thought about things that I'm interested in. I thought about my field of work, all of these things, and nothing came to mind. So I also thought about how my opinions are continuously changing. My thought processes are continuously changing. And what I'm interested in today, I might not be interested in tomorrow. So what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? But that's when I decided to talk about anything. I talk about whatever I want to talk about. Because for me, discovering a niche or one specific passion was always always challenging for me because I have multiple passions and I have multiple interests. I'm growing each and every day. And as I enter new phases in my life, some of those passions and interests shift. And that's okay. Having one passion at a certain point in your life and not having that same passion as you enter a new phase of your life is okay. We outgrow things. We're human. It's normal. It is what it is, right? But I do think that I made a great decision to discuss anything that I want to discuss. It's just me ultimately coming up with whatever topic that pops into my mind for the week, and I talk about it. And I love that. All right, so next I want to talk about timing and consistency, okay? Now, I do want to reiterate that everything that I'm saying applies to me as well. These are still things that I have to put in practice for myself, okay? As a podcaster, I don't have it down. I don't know everything. And there's never a time where I am not open to learning about podcasting. Things are changing all the time. And I definitely need help in the areas of timing and consistency. But again, I'm just speaking on my experiences, and I just hope that you guys can find something to take away or learn from in this podcast, okay? Awesome. Let's get to it. So, as I mentioned before, I am coming back to the podcast from the entire month of April off, right? When I launched this podcast, I did my absolute best to release weekly. My absolute best. And they say releasing weekly helps you grow your audience. It's consistent, it's frequent, yada, yada, yada. However, soon enough, I realized that releasing weekly was just not suitable for me. I work 40 hours a week and sometimes even more. Okay. That's just me being real. Releasing weekly involves planning and drafting my episode. Not everyone does that, but I do. It involves physically recording the episode, editing, marketing. How many hours you spend completing that is on you, but for me, it takes a lot of time. And it's just me. It's just me. You know what I mean? I don't have an editor or a marketing assistant. So it's me doing the process while also trying to learn how to better these processes. How can I edit this podcast better? How can I market this podcast better? It's work. It really is work. And because I do work a 9-to-5 while also trying to ensure that I take care of my well-being, I attend to other interests and hobbies, I socialize, I engage with my family, all those other things. During March of this year, I decided to release bi-weekly, specifically on the 1st and the 15th of each month. Has it been helpful so far? I would say so. I took the entire month of April off because my 9-to-5 actually went through a merger, and that's been an extremely stressful process. I'm not even going to lie. And it pushed me further away from the thought of even recording an episode. And each time I attempted to, it was rushed. I was agitated. My episodes just were not well thought out. And I was just trying to push the content out consistently to stay on schedule. Then I came to another realization that it was getting to the point where I was prioritizing quantity over quality. And what good is it if I'm putting out episodes weekly that sound like shit? I'm all about doing things and just getting started. Things don't need to be perfect. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I do want to feel good about my work. And to do that, I need to go through the process and take my time creating the content of good quality, so I can feel confident in the work that I publish. And I also have to put myself in the listener's shoes, because who wants to listen to a podcast that's shitty? Exactly. Good things take time. It does, especially now. I'd say I'm a beginner for sure. As I always say, I don't know all the ins and outs and the flips and tricks. I'm still learning. Therefore, what's good for me and to me is going to take time. I don't know, guys. I do hope that I can remain on schedule because ultimately it is about me taking charge of my passions, right? Right. But I also don't want to invalidate myself, because life happens. And I have noticed that switching from weekly to bi-weekly helps me a lot with not sounding so repetitive over time and allowing the time for me to actually develop new ideas and experience new experiences and research if I need to, and many other things, because like I said, I want to bring forward quality content. And releasing bi-weekly, it kind of keeps things a little fresh. And I like that. I like that. So it's working out, I would say so for sure. Now, I noticed that some podcasts are formatted with seasons. Okay. Seasons can be extremely beneficial because it allows you and your listeners to take a break. It allows your audience to have time to miss you. And it allows you to miss the microphone. I really should be listening to myself. I really should. I really need to take this advice in for myself because what? But still, like I said, I'm all about pushing others to be great. And I have my own preferences, so it's okay. But I think, too, that when you come back to the podcast, that's when you have to go a little bit harder with marketing. TV shows don't release one season and just say, oh, we're coming back March 2024. They're going to drop some snippets. They're going to drop some trailers. And they will continuously remind you, whether it's through ads or emails, whatever it is. And that is exactly what you have to do when you choose to format your podcast in seasons. I mean, you have to go hard regardless for marketing, but I think specifically with seasons, because there may be that fear of your audience forgetting about you. And I think that build up to the next season it's really important. Every podcast releasing schedule is going to look different, and that's fine. Do what works for you. Okay. If you miss an episode, like I've done a few times, just keep getting on the microphone and keep trying. Okay. Because consistency breeds habits, and the consistency is going to build that trust with you and your audience. Trust me. Trust me. Again, I'm no pro, but trust me. Source, trust me, bro. No, but for real, like I'm being so serious. Utilize a planner or an email calendar. Again, everything I'm saying is things that I need to put in practice myself as well. And like I said, I'm just all about pushing other people. So yeah, utilize a planner, utilize an email calendar. I know me personally, I'm not too big on virtual reminders and virtual calendars. I love a physical planner. I love whiteboards, things that I can actually write on. So do what works best for you in your schedule. If you have kids, if you have a 9 to 5, if you're only working part-time, truly work with your schedule and do what is exactly suitable for you. Okay. Now, let's talk marketing, okay? Oh, gosh. Let's talk marketing, okay? Because it's something that I need a lot of work on. Oh, and marketing, especially for your endeavors, it requires so much consistency, and it requires knowing yourself and knowing what you do. It really, really does. I do my best to market on my podcast Instagram. It could be a lot more than what it is, honestly. And I love an aesthetically pleasing Instagram for like businesses and things like that. See, again, this is where I need a marketing assistant or some sort of social media manager. Not saying that I'm hiring or anything, because I'm not, but the assistants would be helpful. Sometimes just having that second creative eye is amazing. Or I should say second set of creative eyes. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. With marketing, there can be extreme difficulty finding your audience. It can be extremely difficult to stay motivated while trying to find your audience and grow your following. Let me actually tell you guys about something. I follow this girl on Instagram who's starting a hair business. I believe she's going to be selling hair. She had the page up for probably about a year, right? This is no shade, no hate to this girl, okay? She had the page up for about a year. She never posted anything, I don't think, to her story. I don't think she posted anything to her Instagram. When you go to her Instagram, there's no post there, okay? She simply just said that she's starting a hair business. And she has about 400 or 500 followers, okay? She only follows herself back, her original Instagram page. She only follows herself back, and she has 400 followers with no content. And I saw that and I just thought, how? How? You know, I'm not the most well-known person. I'm not super popular. Even in school, it was that way. I never really cared to be. I was kind of in the middle. You know, people knew me, but I wasn't extremely popular, and I kind of liked it that way. But it's just like the fact that all she did was say, hey, I'm about to start selling hair, and 400 people flocked to that Instagram and followed it. And I used to constantly think to myself, why is that not the same for me? But I had to not look at it that way. Again, I'm still finding my audience. You know, apparently her audience are people who consume hair. I had to really come to that realization that, okay, I have to find people who are interested in my content, who wants to listen to my content. And that's not going to be everybody. And I have to understand too that my craft isn't for everyone. My craft and my outlet isn't for everyone to consume. And that's okay. It's not for everyone to support. It's not for everyone to listen to. That's okay. And I know the goal for podcasting is to reach as many people as possible. But you want to find and gain listeners who receive value in listening. Marketing is huge when it comes to social media, hashtags, and aesthetically pleasing Instagram. It is a lot of social media, but it's not always just social media. Marketing is knowing what to title your episode. Is the title grabbing the attention of your audience? It's knowing what to add to your episode description. It's knowing what platforms to share your podcast on. It's word of mouth. It's teasers. It's trailers. It's being on other people's podcast and maybe even inviting them to yours. And to be quite honest, you might have that person who has never shared or promoted your podcast a day in their life, right? But once they get on yours, they're like, hey, everyone listen because I'm on here. And that's just how it is. That's just real. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. That's just how it goes. Okay. Marketing is adding links to your email signature. It's creating a website for your podcast. It's telling people to subscribe, leave reviews, all of those things. Marketing is a lot. Marketing is going to look different for everyone. I really mean that the beginning and ending process of podcasting, the entire process is going to be extremely different for everybody. So different. Like, oh my gosh. And that's exactly why I want you guys to keep in mind to not compare your work to other people's work, especially when it comes to podcasting. Please do not compare. Some people have their podcasts on YouTube. Some people are just on Apple Podcasts. Some people are just on Spotify. Some people are just on... You really have to find what works for you at the end of the day. Okay. I feel like I'm speaking to you guys like I'm your mother. But honestly, I love podcasting though. Like I really, really, really do. And I'm just so happy that I came across it. And I'm so happy that I proceeded with doing it. You know, as I mentioned before, I learn a lot about myself. I learn a lot about other people. I get to engage with other people. And it's just so interesting. I love it. And I really love the part of it being just kind of like this personal diary, you know, listening back to where I was a year ago. What did I even say a year ago? You know what I mean? So it's extremely interesting and it's so fun. I love to talk. Ask anybody. I can talk people's heads off about nothing at that. Like literally about nothing. But I do want to thank each and every one of you for listening and just tuning in to this episode, especially with me coming back to the podcast. Again, just thank you so much. I always appreciate it. Make sure you guys listen, follow, subscribe, okay, on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. And also make sure you guys are following the podcast Instagram, okay? I just talked about getting that following up. I need help from you guys who are listening, okay? So make sure you guys are following the podcast Instagram at Thread of Thoughts Pod, okay? And we'll talk soon.